Man, it is cold outside, but at least the sun is shining. So that's something. But I know, at least with me and with a lot of people too, as soon as the weather starts changing and getting colder, I start to feel like shit. But with that said, let's talk about mental health. What's up, guys? John Moon back again with another video, this time on a very important topic, mental health. Specifically, mental health for creators and creative people. I mean, this topic is gradually becoming a little bit more mainstream and understood and educated. It's definitely come a long way in the past decade, and especially now after COVID, when everybody was isolated at home. It was a problem for a lot of people, and because of that, it's becoming a little bit more recognized. If anything good came from COVID, it was that the awareness for mental health has increased. So that's good. But with that said, it's still relatively underlooked, and it's not talked about as much as it should be, especially in the creator space. I mean, creators in general are relatively underlooked and underappreciated. And it's because this type of work in this creator space is still relatively new. And I know for me, I have people around me, friends, family, who ask me what I do, and I say, well, I'm a content creator. And usually they're like, so what is that? And obviously I try and go into as much detail as I can, but generally, it's not taken as seriously, at least right now, but it will be. I do predict that creators in general and this creative role in society will seem a lot more legitimate to people going forward. But for now, it's tough to be taken seriously as a content creator. And furthermore, it's even more difficult to be taken seriously when talking about mental health and how to take care of yourself as a creator. But it's still important, and we should still talk about it. Sure, it's wonderful that more and more people are able to, find some freedom in their work by doing what they love to do, making money off their creative work, potentially making a living. But that doesn't mean being a creator isn't without its difficulties. And one of those problems, and I had mentioned COVID was a huge player in this, is self-isolation. A lot of the time, being a content creator means that you're working from home, working remotely, working entirely online, pretty much cut off from the real world, at least to a certain extent. I am in front of my laptop or on my phone all of the time for work. And I know a lot of creative people nowadays are doing the same exact thing. So I'm pretty cut off from the world when I'm working. And even at the end of my work day, I'm usually still at home, just chilling, just relaxing. I'm not going out into the world as much as I should. And creators of all kinds experience this issue, especially gamers, influencers, podcasters, bloggers, video creators. The internet is a beautiful thing when it comes to, giving tools and resources for people to be able to do this type of stuff for a living, but it has also cut a lot of people out from the real world. Another big issue is imposter syndrome, which is basically feelings of self-doubt and self-incompetence. It doesn't matter how knowledgeable you are in the content that you create, you still feel that overwhelming sense of not being good enough because you're constantly being compared to all the other content creators that are out there. You see creators that you want to be more like. You see ones that are quote unquote better than you, or seem to have it all together, or are posting on a consistent basis much more than you are. They seemingly have it figured out, at least in your mind, and you apparently don't. At least that's what you're telling yourself. So social media and being online all the time just constantly makes you feel like you're being critiqued and not good enough. And due to that, you start overworking yourself. You put a lot of pressure on yourself to get your stuff done and get your content out there. And not just on a consistent basis, but you want to make sure it's good too. Putting that much pressure on yourself is going to block your creativity. It's going to unmotivate you. It's going to discourage you. And then what's the point? Now you're taking the thing that you thought you loved doing and suddenly you're just not interested anymore. Even if you're being totally authentic with your work and it's about a subject that you're truly passionate about, you can still spread yourself thin and overwork yourself. So those are just a few major things that can really affect your mental health. So what can we do to take care of ourselves? Well, I mentioned self-isolation being a huge factor. And one way to help that is to just carve out some time for yourself get outside. Among all this craziness of getting your stuff out there, making sure you're making enough content, you have to carve time for yourself. So a good way of doing that is to set time limits. Not actually just make a to-do list of things that you need to get done, but put time limits on those things. From this time to this time, I'm going to work, but then once that ends, I'm going to do something for myself. And there's a multitude of things that you can do within that time. Meditation is huge. I mean, some people may claim that it's not for them and they're unable to fully relax and it just doesn't work for them. But meditation takes many different forms. It's not just sitting on the floor cross-legged with your eyes closed, chanting whatever. It can be something as simple as playing some ocean sounds while you work, or taking a second to just breathe. Take a step back from what you're doing and just clear your mind as much as you possibly can. Another thing you can do within that time that you're carving out for yourself is do another hobby. Do a different hobby than your work hobby. If you love the creative work that you're doing and you're passionate about it, you still need other hobbies that aren't related to your work. You still need things that have nothing to do with making content around. So like for me, I like to cook. But I'm not gonna go out and make content about cooking. I'm not gonna ruin that for myself. There are things that can spark creativity and joy without it feeling like a job. I also mentioned how social media is a huge factor and just constantly messes with your mind. Unfortunately, a lot of us have to use social media all the time to build our audience, to publish our creative work. I mean, everything that I do is online and through social media primarily. So how do I avoid the negative aspects of it? One small but super impactful thing that you can do is when you wake up in the morning, don't go on your phone. Get up out of bed before you start scrolling through social media. It's difficult because you're in bed, you're comfortable, your phone's literally right next to your head. You want to catch up on all the things you missed when you were asleep, but just try not to do that. Get up and do something, anything, something small first before you go on your phone. You can eat breakfast instead, or drink some water, exercise, meditate, do some breathing exercises. Same thing goes for when you go to bed. Screens off at a certain time. That's another time limit that you can set. Sleep is huge on everyone's mental health. And if what we're doing right before we try to sleep is stare at a bright screen in a dark room and continue to consume so much information and cram your mind when you really should be settling down and relaxing, I mean, that's certainly not the healthiest thing. Since we're on the topic of social media, another big thing is to simply unfollow accounts that aren't serving you. Guess what? You're never going to be like that other creator that you love so much. You're not going to be them because you're not them. They're a completely different person. You might want to be them. You might be inspired by them. You might even be motivated by them. But if you find yourself constantly comparing yourself to them and criticizing yourself, then that's doing more harm than good, and you need to unfollow them. The types of accounts that you should be following are people like you, especially if you're a content creator who has a bit of an audience, and within that audience you have some people that you really can cling on to. Follow the types of accounts that build you up as a creator, that make you feel good, that make you feel actually motivated. Which leads me to one of my overarching points here, is that you need to surround yourself with as much positivity as possible, thus creating positive relationships that can potentially flourish into a community that you have built yourself, a community that supports you as a creator. And it doesn't have to be a big following. I know we're all shooting for numbers. We're shooting for, thousands of followers or tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of followers. We don't need that to feel good. In fact, most of those people, you're not even interacting with. Are they even liking what you do? Honestly, the quality of your followers is much more rewarding than the quantity of them. And we've touched on this in 3 other videos about community building and why it's important for creators. But in this current creator landscape, you don't need a ton of followers. You really just need tight-knit community members, especially those who really support you and make you feel good about yourself. And it's just this circle of positivity. Focus on them. Don't focus on not hitting your numbers, not hitting your weekly, daily quota of content, whatever. People don't care about that. Your most loyal fans don't care if you're inconsistent. And I would say the very last piece of advice, with all of that other stuff in mind, is to be vulnerable. Put yourself out there when it comes to your mental health. Your followers will understand. Nobody is against you here. Your followers want to support you. Your circle of positivity that you've created only wants to support you and see you grow. And with that said, we at Buy Me a Coffee are taking that seriously and trying to create that comfortable environment for everyone. Our weekly Twitter space every Friday is an example of that. It's an example of us trying to not only bring creators together, but also motivate them and help them feel comfortable enough to discuss these types of things and have these types of conversations. So I would invite everybody watching this to tune in for when we have these types of conversations, and follow, subscribe, because it's not just about us gaining our own followers, it's about helping creators, not only to monetize their creative work. Obviously that's what we are as a core, but the creator landscape is much broader than that. It goes much deeper than that. We're in the business of helping creators in all aspects of their life, including their mental health. This is something that we really want to spread more awareness for. So let's do it together. And with that said, I'm gonna go outside and get some fresh air. Cheers, everybody. Stay healthy.